Got a little corridor, some doors, you go up the steps, your room,
Can I live long enough to raise my kids? Can I live long enough to see justice? I stay away from the streets and the trouble to get in. Trying to stay strong in this world full of sin, but they wanna bring us down, they wanna see us win. They wanna kill us all, Lord, tell me, can I live? Can I live? Can I live? Can I live? I know age is deeper than the color of the skin. So can I live? Can a nigga live? Can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live? Know the age is deeper than the color of the skin. Can I live?
Possesses slavery, possesses the company trade. Murder books, that doesn't mean to slay somebody. You mean to kill them without it being consideration. For slaves, go ahead and hold themselves. Not their hands on themselves, not hands like this piece of Coronavirus shifted the earth, now watching all panic fight through these curses that we live in. Repress slaughter, complete the order when it's given here. These practice humble, we almost the activity.
Yeah, I know you said you was in art and things like that. Yeah, we got a lot of art from art agents right here. You know, art from white folks. Actually, you know, this is like the original stuff. According to our belief system, picture us in the Bible, black
Well, I had trust going up with witness. And again, we sit there and talk about Africa. We talk about Africa. All these images and stuff drawn of white people. You know, white people look nice and tan, but still they got those days. So they're just like the people who live there now. I got older and I started realizing
one of the brothers, you know, like a lot of people that still believe, you know, white Christ and care.
I live in people who are scared. Them trailers. Really examine the place that we live in, research the fear of to the core, to the point where one more time life off of it. Two of these points, that's gonna happen. So it's like, here to like, around about 5 How you doing, bro? I said, brothers here, go ahead and get started. It's also a virtual town hall, okay. So we'll maybe take comments from people online, okay. Anything like that. All right. Y'all gonna do it like on Facebook with or on like? It's gonna be on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. Okay. Live. So you're actually on there right now. It's a lot, man. I didn't even tell you. You're on there right now. I didn't want to hot like nobody.
You want to be open. We all about keeping things real. Whatever you got to do, the main thing is respect. Respect everybody, respect. That's it. People's opinions might differ, but the goal is to empower the lives of Black people. You know what I'm saying? And these questions are solved, but we invited the mayor. We invited the mayor of Indianapolis. We invited a lot of council people. They might show up alone. We just show up. I know it's rain kind of church thing. Try to keep things real, real and simple.
Something I felt on right before, like, I'm not a person. That's why I was wrong so much for myself. I'm not a person who's like, all the rah and show stuff. So it's like, the real work behind the scenes, the real work is done daily with individuals. It's not about making some grand gestures, some grandstanding, and having some big display. It's about working, on individuals, you know what I mean? Don't expect whatever this is, you know what I mean? Just about figuring out how to do people. Figure out what they are trying to do, how can they affect the whole people, squash our differences and work together.
Be so divided by so many different ideologies and philosophies and different things. Like we also see our plight. It's like we all have the same plight. Then, our neighborhoods are being gentrified. We're disowned, in our community by our own government. A lot of times we don't have the funding and things that we need. So, for better homes and housing, we're going to discuss all that. Question. So it should be interesting documents to get everybody's feedback and different things we can tackle. But yes, we try to have something where people can be heard and vent, a little bit. Can't complain about stuff that don't come together and try to talk about it. Well, why are things so high? Why are bills so high?
Gas prices going up so damn high.
Gas is going up. Again, they just take something on the news and you believe it. So we got to examine a little bit.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes I say a lot of discernment. You're only discernment that you're on the news and that's not. You know what I mean? They don't sit there and think about like, okay, gas prices going up. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so we went to war, Russia went to war, and now the gas prices going up because what? You can't get gas from Russia anymore, but we still get a majority of our gas from Russia. So it's like, it can make sense, you know. Right. I told my kids I work with, they say, gas prices, I started driving on the $1.25. Yeah. You know what I mean? Gas is going to go up. So keep going up. Or the problem with it is work for life. They don't need somebody to go. We at home, you know, I love staying at home. You know, so focus on like the negative. How can I work around the situation? Life is all life ain't gonna never be easy. You know, something we're gonna work against, you know.
Yeah, exactly right. We got to start about their own Medicare for drugs. You know, we got to get these off the drugs. You know, we got to get people. You know, that's one of the main ones. You know what I mean? Because you know, you are living a life, you know, trying to escape reality. You know, you're not confronting the issues head on. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of part with the Black Latino community,
You know, that's a breakdown, you know, right there in front of everybody. You know, whatever how much you lose, that could probably be classified as a mentor. A reasonable person did not go and do something like that.
Like it's a joke. I know people get a like you know, he said like why he could have stepped to one of the shows like that conversation is really there. You know, but no, he did. It's like talking about his fate. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, this is actually this way out here.
It's two black men, right? Fighting through the middle of the hospital, you know what I'm saying? You know, we got a stigma already with us, so you know, people look at it different ways, you know. That was just really unfortunate, but I think it's definitely a mental health issue on the part of you know, and a lot of it stems from pressure, you know,
I'm starting to really think about people going to be stuff.
yeah, I love this work. I love the work, you know.
I think it's a pressure that he was doing himself.
Yeah,
I think he has kind of created it out.
You gotta keep that door closed. It's gonna let the air out.
She didn't like it. This love, but she probably didn't know what you wanted. You know, culture is very real. Real style. Hollywood's real. White things, all the kind of things that you try to push that on and it's all buck. You know, all the things are buck. You want to do that. You know what I mean? So you should try to find one side away from this way. Like that, so that dirty bottom is you know what I mean? And the pressure of that is what made him crash.
It's unfortunate. So you're right, you know. that's why it's so important what you're doing, like with the youth and all that. And what we do with the youth also, we also help the youth. We have mentorship programs, little job programs for them to do, different things like that. So it'd be good, man. You know what I'm saying? Collaborate. So like we come down to it. It's about instilling dignity in these children. Instilling, like you said, self-awareness of who they are. And otherwise, you're going to be somebody else tell you who you are. And that's been our problem. Since we was told, who we was by some people didn't necessarily have our right interests, you know what I'm saying? So, I'm alright. See what's going on. Early starting is just going home.
Are y'all having like if you got a little wrestling, you just get to go to
just get up and go. So I mean, I gotta watch all these. We got these scores and stuff on. If you will, I can show you where it's at.
I'm good. I'm just saying, like I go drink the water throughout the night. I might have to go to.
Get up and go. You know what I'm saying? Kind of
It's supposed to be 5:30. Well, the air is coming from the rest of the building into here, and there's a vent right there by that chair. What you could do, Barzal, is put that fan in the blue room and make the air face run this way. No, we good for now. And Makaba. No, we can yeah, give us a spot with the most space. If we need to create more space for all three of them, we'll just move the table up slightly.
Yes. Yeah, so we have a discussion tonight on some different topics like crime in the community, and rents and bills, and be free to question opinions, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna ask some questions. If you got a question or got an answer, just raise your hand. Yeah, my bills are not because of this. You know what I'm saying? Just if you want. Okay, no pressure.
You playing that shit down. You understand? Because right now, these real niggas, and you the last real nigga left. My nigga, Captain Style War. One West City Burger. Y'all already know what it is. The rest of you bitch ass niggas out there, fuck.
Pull up to the show, what you tell? Fuck. Hit them with the fuck, what you tell? Fuck. They don't want no crowd. They don't want no smoke, what you tell? Fuck. Pull up to the show, what you tell? Fuck. Hit them with the fuck, what you tell? Fuck. They don't want no crowd. You know my motto is fuck 'em, that's all I gotta say. Scope on the rifle at a spot from a mile away. Still getting women drunk off Hennessy and Alizé. Still with the niggas loading hollow tips inside the cage. Still be on that same shit, but I gotta change with multiplying bitches. Might not see me with the same bitch, but you might see me riding 95 North in the black Mitsubishi 195 horse. Power with no sour, couple bottles there, of course. R.I.P. to all my fallen riders in the morgue. Yeah, you know I got the juice, know I got the sauce. And the super fly, pull a body in the Porsche. I don't need a molly just to pop her out the drawers. Shorty didn't make it cause she know that I'm the ball. Ready for that drama, man, I'm ready for the war. If you talking rap,
the DA, fuck them to the law. Fuck them cause they got my brother stuck behind them bars. Fuck them to the PD, fuck them to the force. Fuck them to the haters, just let that be in the cause. They don't want no smoke all the time. Fuck them. Pull up to the show, what you tell? Fuck them. Hit them with the fuck all the time. Fuck them. They don't want no ride. They don't want no smoke all the time. Fuck them. Pull up to the show, what you tell? Fuck them. Hit them with the fuck all the time. Fuck them. They don't want no pride. We got tons of guns, don't make us use it. Doing something stupid, resulting in being toothless. Eating raw toppers in the whip like it's ruthless. Like my girl's chocolate with the chip, so she useless. Always been the nigga that's too big for the Gucci. Long as I got enough room to squeeze in the toolie. Couple extra clips that it seems from your movie. Step up in the club, ready spinning like a brewery. Then I mix the frankincense, keep the aroma. Keep roots fresh to death, you in your coma. Shit, you supreme in this game, I'm the owner. Bitches call me, but for you to pick the phone up. Niggas talking childish shit. I'm a grown up. You for a while, I'm sick. Keep me throwing up. Keep guns on every floor in my house. Yeah, you might make it in, but you ain't making it out. It's kind of like you got a bullseye taking your scalp. It's like you walking through the jungle, but the lions is out. You became in the nigga. What you lying about? The generals will get a word, but you breaking them up. Never ever smoke. Fuck. Pull up to the show, what you tell? Hit them with the fuck.
Yeah, smart.
They don't want no pride. They don't want no smoke. Pull up to the show, what you tell? Fuck. Hit them with the fuck.
If you could.
They don't want no pride.
Trust me, I know this.
Oh.
It sucks.
Yeah.
I need to pay my phone. Well, I need another phone.
Uh-huh.
I love my phone.
Yeah, it's like you need it nowadays. Hey,
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right, pretty good.
Make sure my phone's off.
He's Officer Mark Bob with the
Pleasure.
ISUPK. If you couldn't have a seat right there,
Where?
y'all both can go ahead and sit right here in the front, right there. Y'all like.
Man, Mike Wally.
Also, Mark Bob with ISUPK.
Mr. Stewart. Vincent Stewart. Mr. Stewart. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mike Wally. Hey, Mr. Stewart. Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, you know, he one brother to monitor the camera for people, but still, he monitors from here.
You guys, anybody else want to come in the prosecutor's office?
We tried to, the prosecutor's office was contacted, the citizens complaint office was contacted. They never responded as much as I did.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Yeah, we just trying to have this discussion, with Blacks and Latinos to empower us to live better lives. So we ready to get started.
We already live.
So I'd like to welcome everybody for this evening's Indianapolis ISUPK City Hall meeting.
That's right.
And tonight we're going to come together and ask some tough questions that plague the Black and Latino community. We got a special guest. But first, I'd like to give an acknowledgement to Commanding General Yohana for presenting this event.
That's right. Yeah.
The ISUPK is a nonprofit organization that's been around since 1969 that's been helping Blacks and Latinos empower themselves for the better. I'd like to thank our host tonight, Captain Kapas, for sponsoring the event. And I'll be the mediator tonight. My name is Officer Amakabak with the ISUPK. A little bit about myself. So I grew up down south in Kentucky. I grew up in the projects, and I've seen a lot of things that plague the Black and Latino community in those projects. So I wanted to make a difference in my life. When I was young, I joined the military, and I thought, well, I'm making somewhat of a difference, but I'm not seeing tangible results in my community. So when I got out of the military, I went and joined a police force. I was on a police force. And there I did some good work. However, I seen a side of it where in my particular department, I wasn't effective as I would have liked to be.
Right.
After that, I came across this organization, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. And I was able to see brothers tangibly help the Black and Latino community, feed them, clothing them, mentor them. I would see a difference in these people's lives. And I just said, man, how can I be a part of it? So I linked up with Captain Kapash. He turned me into a different person. And since then, we've been all over the country helping Blacks and Latino better their lives. And tonight, it's about empowering our people. So we got some questions that need to be addressed because we tried to reach out to different people in the community. Some came, we appreciate our esteemed guests, if I will. I think there's a microphone there, and we can start right here with you, sir, and the mic. And you just kind of explain who you are and what you do, if you don't mind.
So I'm Commander Mike Wally.
Is it on?
There we go. I'm Commander Mike Wally. I currently serve as the North District Commander, which means I have direct oversight of the 208 officers that patrol North District, which is roughly 74 square miles. Oversee investigations, or general investigations on the districts, our community relations team, proactive policing, patrol, and other facets of the district. We take roughly 110,000 police runs a year, 24/7 operation.
I really appreciate it.
So,
And my introduction will be very brief. However, my name is Linton Stewart, Sergeant of North District Community Relations. I work directly underneath Commander Mike Wally. I would say I'm kind of his right-hand assistant. And so obviously as he has goals, initiatives, directions, he funnels those through me and my team along with the rest of the district facilitate those demands, those desires, and those requirements that he has on the district.
My name is Michael Wilson. I am a youth mentor, and I work for an organization. We specialize in doing after-school programming. My program works in the daytime with older youth between the ages of 16 and 24, helping them find jobs and get back into school or get their GED and high school equivalencies. And besides that, my passion is art and creating art of Black folks and science fiction and hip hop based art. It's my passion.
that's right. That's right. And if I could, while we answering the questions, if the brothers on the panel could also during the answering of the question give some background on yourselves. You understand? Because we know that the Black community is only as strong as its Black men. So it's good to know about the Black brothers who are the leaders of our times right now. You understand? The brothers who are out in the community making a difference. So if you could divulge some info about yourself and things you believe in as well during the course of the meeting, so people in the community that's going to be watching online, because with the internet we can reach hundreds and thousands with on the click of the button. This will be on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, multiple channels. So it'd be great for people who say you may run into somebody in the community and say, hey, I remember seeing you on Keystone and the community thing, officer such and such. So it's good for our people. We got to come together. We in the last days. So let's get it. Go ahead. Yeah.
So the next format, we're going to ask a couple of questions. We have several topics that we're going to go over. And anybody, we're going to have kind of like an open floor type deal. Of course, we're going to have respect for one another. And if I ask a question, just raise your hand, and then I'll just choose you and just give your thoughts and opinions. Tonight's all about brainstorming, coming together. We can come together and find solutions where have a better Black and Latino community here in Indianapolis.
That's right.
So if I will, tonight's first topic is going to be on crime. And tonight's first question is going to be, is crime a serious problem in your neighborhood? If so, why do you think so? Would anybody like to take that question?
Wait, what's say that again?
Oh, Will. Is crime a serious problem in your neighborhood? If so, why do you think so?
I'll crack at it first. I know one thing we teach in the Israelite school, UPK, is that for brothers to not do drugs, right? This is just one portion of a large question. But as far as like, because most people think smoking marijuana or different soft drugs is no harm, right? But what you don't know, what part you don't add in, is that when you buy a blunt or you buying blunts every week from a drug dealer, you are funding a criminal enterprise. You may not go shoot up the block or shoot up some rival drug dealers, but you paying for a guy to get the bullets, to get the guns, who's going to do it with the legal drug sales, with the money he's getting, with the money that's going from here to there, all the way even to Mexico and cartels. They're shooting up shooting up towns in Mexico. You putting bullets in their guns when you buy the drugs. So the Israelite school, UPK, is a drug-free school, and we teach our brothers to not smoke weed. It's against the Most High. It's against the Bible. So that's our solution for the crime problem, because we do believe there is a crime problem with our people and our communities as far as our crimes. And one of the ways, there's many ways, but one of the ways to reduce the crime is to stop buying drugs. You understand? Because you supporting criminals. You supporting the brothers who are going to shoot up the block. You understand? So that's one thing right there. If anybody else want, we can let the other brothers get crack at it too.
Yeah, would anybody like to add to that or about the drug issue?
Barzal, you could pass them the mic if somebody sitting down want to.
Oh, feel free. You can
Have all the brothers sit down.
So crime is a complex issue, right? There's so many things that contribute to crime, especially within the community. When I say community, I'm talking about the areas that are hardest hit by crime, areas that are impacted economically, that kind of perpetuate the cycle of crime because there's a lack of opportunity. People can't go and get jobs. Businesses don't want to come into the neighborhoods because there's violence or there's drug trafficking or there's other things. And so as we look for how to address crime, law enforcement's role is to enforce the laws on the books, right?
Right.
But there's so many other things involved in this big crime picture. There's mental health, there's lack of opportunity, there's education, there's I said mental health already, there's poverty. I mean, there's so many things that contribute. So we have to look at crime as this wheel. And the only way that we're really going to get the circle of violence or crime is if we address all of these things that are surrounding it. And so it's a big job. And IMPD can't do it alone. It seems like our job has expanded significantly over the last couple of years to be that we have to take on everything that society throws at us that no one else wants to deal with. And so as you all know, we're having issues hiring. We're having issues keeping people within the job because there's a tremendous feeling of being overwhelmed while doing this job. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're here. But we need community groups and organizations such as yours to come in and partner with us and focus on drugs, like you just said.
Right.
Focus on those things. Focus on poverty. Focus on education. And then let us focus on that root, that actual violence, and stop the bleeding.
That's right. Anyone else?
Thank you. I like
Commander Waller.
Commander Waller was saying about the mental health side of crime. Again, we all know that crime is multifaceted. Just as much as a crime in our community as crime in other communities that looks different. But in our community in particular, I think a lot of it stems from the mental health side and from the opportunities and resources, or lack thereof, within the community, which to me also kind of feeds back into the mental health. Again, it's kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg. The mental health disparities cause the crime, cause it poverty, or was poverty causing the mental health issues? So I think that is one of the biggest problems that we have in the community is the mental health side and the lack of resources, which makes people resort to crime. mental health also makes people resort to using drugs, and so there are a lot of people with undiagnosed mental disorders, and they use drugs to numb the pain, to run from it, to add some normalness to themselves. I seen on the way here, I seen a young man in the middle of the street, and I could tell he wasn't in his right frame of mind. I think most people would automatically sit there like, man, he's a crackhead, but I've seen a lot of crackheads in my days and all don't act like that on drugs, you know what I mean? So the behavior that we see sometimes from individuals is not always drug related, it's a mental health issue as well. And without tackling the mental health issue, we're not going to be able to get them off drugs. Something that part of my past is I've studied mental health through art therapy. And one of the things they teach us when talking about substance abuse is the substance is a symptom to the problem. It is something that has happened as a coping mechanism for the person. If you try to take away the drug, you haven't taken away what that drug was masking or trying to fix. And so it will be replaced by another drug or another habit if you're not giving them something in return. And so I feel like if we don't have or we don't find a way to develop resources within our community, then it's going to stay on that circle. So it's like we have to figure out how to break the cycle and start moving away from the instability of mental health and the lack of resources that are in our neighborhoods right now.
That's right. That's right.
Appreciate that comment.
Yeah, 'cause
Well, if I will, I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. Now, I know you mentioned about the mental health issue and about the drugs. It does seem like it goes hand in hand. However, us in the Black and Latino community, we have to ask a question: how are these drugs getting into the community?
Right.
Is it something systematic to try to keep us oppressed, or keep us, like you said, trying to search for a state of escapism? So my question here is that, do you think that the drug problem is something that is, I would say, would it be like what's the word I'm trying to use?
and if I could, you was with the white man's police force for a while, and I see what you're saying, because they did have a study that they brought drugs into LA through the Iran-Contra scandal. When you was with the police force, did you witness any things where the police was aiding the drugs into the community?
Well, unfortunately, in my particular department, I did. And that was one of the reasons why, just morally, and I'm not saying this is for all departments, but in my particular department, I did see some things that was unethical. And it made me change, it made me think, well, I'm supposed to be trying to deter crime. The people that we have trusted to protect us and to serve us, they should not be the people that are adding to the problem. And of course, I had to leave the organization at that time, or that department at that time. And I guess the word I was trying to say, is it intentional? That's the word I was searching for. Is it intentional bringing these drugs in the community? And it doesn't seem like that other races have the same problems as the Black and Latino community concerning drugs. So does anybody else have any thoughts on if drugs are intentionally being put in the Black and Latino community? That was my question.
So if we were talking about my agency, I don't believe that's the case. What I can say is there's been several documentaries that have shown that may have possibly been true. So I'm not here to say that that's something that does not happen. I'm not here to say that has not happened. But what I can tell you about the IMPD is that we have put things into place to make sure that we don't have those issues when officers are on duty. I mean, you've got reforms such as the body-worn camera and a policy that is strictly followed by our officers. So much so that in some places when they engage with the citizens within the city, if they pull their firearm or if they turn on their lights or if they're dispatched on a run within a certain amount of distance, or within a certain amount of distance, their cameras automatically come on. It also has a 30-second lag time so that we can pick up anything that happens prior to the officer having to turn his camera on in a situation where he has to physically turn it on. And so I think with those things like that, and you have things like civilian oversight on IMD that's been around for a long time. Our merit board is one of the things that's led by the civilians. They hire, they fire, and they promote officers on our agency. We've got a general orders board, which is majority citizens, who are also responsible for putting our policies into place. We have a civilian majority use of force board, who are responsible for actually reviewing, and they have access to the body-worn cameras. They have access to the reports drafted by the supervisors, just determine if we're using appropriate force. In fact, if we talk about use of force, our agency has taken it so much so that everyone knows about the reasonableness standard, correct? We've dialed that in even more so it has to be proportionate. It means an officer has to use the minimal amount of force in a situation. And so I think if you have an agency that's proactive like the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, that you can alleviate some of those issues. Now, am I so naive to believe that that's not possible here? I'm not. Right? I believe anything can happen. But I think as long as you have things in place to kind of govern those things and deter those things as much as possible, you're going to have a better agency.
Good question. Good answer. Oh, also, Makba, if the officers only have a limited period of time, so we're going to have to try to run through as many as we can while we got them.
All right. So the next question, and I don't mean to put you guys on the hot seat. This is the first topic about crime, and
Put me on the hot seat.
but it says, our question is, do the police do a good job responding to the crime where you live? But I would like to hear from somebody in the community on this one.
Go ahead. Madara, can you get Shamash on the mic, or Barzal, give him the mic?
If I may, just to respond with a question, what percentage of fatal shootings and shootings in general, what percentage is it right now? Do you know how many times do you guys actually catch the so-called suspect?
So, my understanding, the last time I took this, you are putting me on the spot. So as a district commander, I'm not really privy to that type of information on a day-to-day basis. However, the last time we had staff, I think our solvability rate was roughly around 48, 49%, somewhere in the 40s, high 40s. It's tough. It's tough right now. Honestly, when you don't have that established trust and legitimacy that we're always building towards, but we can't quite grasp, be it because of things that are caught on camera from other states, other parts of the world, or even sometimes in our own backyard. It seems like that's always chipped away. You don't get the cooperation from the citizens out there that may have seen something. And in some cases, they're fearful. And I certainly understand that too. But our solvability is something that we have been working on for a long time. We've recently expanded our homicide unit. We're trying to expand it even further. Right now, our homicide unit, because of the homicide rate right now, they're carrying anywhere, I think from, don't quote me on this, I think they're carrying roughly 9 per detective, which is extraordinarily high for a homicide unit. And so that also contributes to the solvability rate, the amount of time that a detective can focus on one incident. And we want to be able to focus on one life. We want to be able to do that, but it's getting tough.
And I want to add in one thing too, what she said in our neighborhoods. Every time when I watch a news article or something on the news, or read an article on the internet, and it's a murder, the IMPD never give any details of the murder that could help other people maybe be responsive and see what's going on. Like it'd be it was a serial rapist out on the loose in the east side and had a whole bunch of bodies all over the east side. but they wasn't giving no information about him. Like he tends to come out around his victims was getting caught around this time, or he looked like this, or he's dressed like this, or this was his MO. I know maybe they trying to give, investigative integrity, but at what point is it not helping the community to just not give out information? 10 people were shot today, no information. That's it. Like, dang, give somebody some info. Like, is there a shooter out? Was it a family incident? Why don't the NPD give out any info to help the community have a greater understanding on what's going on with the city?
So, Commander Michael Wiley always speaks a little bit better than I do. As well as he does, keep pretty real. And so I'll try to go step by step with some of the questions that you've asked. So you spoke about the investigatory skills and practices that potentially IPD practices in or other police agencies. So we've all seen on movies where there are copycats. And unfortunately, if you divulge too much information, someone may say, I did do it, and so forth. So much goes into, and being a former detective myself, much goes into those type of investigatorial techniques as far as to ensure that the individual that people are reporting on and or that you suspect is actually the true individual suspect. Unfortunately, we've seen around the United States where the police department, prosecutor's office, so forth and so on, has locked up the wrong person. Right. And then after 15, 20 years, thanks to DNA, or someone says, I lied, or it did not happen, there's no amount of money you can pay for somebody's freedom. Right. At the end of the day. And so we have to ensure that when we put somebody in handcuffs and they go through the justice system, that we have the right individual that has been accused and actually been convicted of the crime itself. Now, the commander touched on it very briefly, but when we talk about solvability, that was one of those situations that we really do depend on the community. I know, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, people talk about snitching, stitches get stitches, whatever it is. And so we are constantly fighting against that. But many times, even though we may know who did it, I think majority of the time, I'm not gonna say all the time, many of our homicide detectives are some of the best in the United States. Majority of the time, they know who did it. They may not have all the evidence, or they may not have the victim or someone that saw something, and that is a small key piece that's needed to, basically close the case. And so I get people are afraid, but at the end of the day, when they say we are the community and the community are us, that's what we need. So now we put some things in place. Obviously, we always broadcast and promote 262 tips so that when someone reports something, they can remain anonymous. They get a number. The police department has nothing to do with it. And I'm not trying to say they get paid, but there is a system in place where they get paid if the information they provide leads to arrest and conviction. So we really try to promote that so that people can stay anonymous. But at the end of the day, when it comes to solvability, we really depend on the community, because at the end of the day, I keep saying that, we all know that grandma, that grandpa that knows, and sometimes they whisper in our ears, that car don't belong there. Or at 5 o'clock every day, there's cars that pull up and there's some hand-to-hand transactions and leave my name out of it. And so we definitely appreciate that type of information. So I just want to really emphasize that we need the community's assistance and help when it comes to solving a majority of these crimes, especially our high-profile crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, answer that comment.
Okay. I want to speak quickly. I know you guys have a little time. Want to jump back to your original question about are things the way they are on purpose. I do feel like there's good and bad in every situation. Every organization, every group of people, there's some good people and there's some bad people. I like to say there are powers that be that have manipulated resources, manipulated perceptions of people to get us into the situation that we are now in. So I do think that it is somebody at some level who, are using their resources, their knowledge to keep other groups of people in a under their foot. As far as the police and kind of like what you brought to mind was to stop snitching. On the same level the police have that don't cross that blue line model where they look out for their own as well. The difference is in our situation, when the police cross the line, there's sometimes videotapes and, like I said, body cams and all that information there, and they still get away with it. Where when most times when Juju shoots Pookie, there's nobody around. It's done in the cover of night. We know it. You know, I'm from the streets. We hear about it. We know what's talked about, but there's not as much proof. And secondly, there's no protection for those people who do turn witness. You know, I don't believe in that snitching because I feel like that's a criminal snitching on other people. That's snitching. If you're grandma who's seen something outside the window, you're a witness. But there's no protection for grandma if she talks. You know, and if somebody in the mafia begins to talk about other people in the mafia, they get witness protection. There's no witness protection for grandma in the neighborhood when she speaks on the situation. And especially, and you gotta look at it the other way, these are still people's family members and friends that they're like, I don't want to be the one to turn them in. And you know, and so it is difficult to just sit there and say, we need you guys to come forward and speak about it when there's so, like everything else, there's so many layers of complexity weaved amongst one crime, you know, and so it's very hard for anybody to sit there and say that, you know, these people are to blame or that person is to blame or the lack of information given by a certain group of people are to blame because we don't have the same resources and accountability doesn't go the same way for all groups. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Appreciate it. Anybody else like to talk on that issue? If not, we got another question. I think this is gonna be the last question to put you guys on the hot seat, but we're gonna ask it because we gotta have a dialogue between the community and IPD. So if I will, the next question is gonna be, how do you feel when you see an IPD police officer? I'd like to get that from somebody in the community.
Can I talk about
Well,
it? Can I talk about it from a sense from before I became a police officer?
Yeah, everybody talk. Let everybody talk.
You guys are in plain clothes. How do y'all feel when y'all see another cop or
Yeah.
out of town dealing with other police officers?
So you said divulge a little bit about yourself. I'm from Indianapolis originally, I grew up on the northwest side of town. You know, I was in a middle class family, no real issues, but I will say this, just based on the way that I was, and I will say this, my father's a chaplain on the sheriff's department, so I grew up around law enforcement. But as a teen, I was nervous. I couldn't really tell you why, but I was nervous. I don't know if it was the authority. I don't know if it was maybe I did something wrong. Maybe it was for the sheer fact that he had a firearm on and I didn't know him or what could possibly happen in this interaction. But I was nervous. I think of an incident that happened when I was in college on my way to track practice on 465, and I was speeding. I was blowing the doors off of cars because I was late. I blew past in Indianapolis. It was a school police officer. It was an IPD. But when he got out of the car, he walked up to my car and he had his gun on his hand. And I'm thinking, this is me, right? I ain't never been in trouble. I ain't never did nothing. I mean, I may talk back to my mom and dad, but they dealt with that. But I was like, why do you have your hand on your gun? And it was confusing to me. And, you know, I ended up getting a ticket and I went home and I talked to my parents about it. You know, we had to talk and all that other good stuff. But that made me feel some kind of way, right? But still, I jumped into this career. And when I jumped into this career, that gave me perspective. And it gave me an opportunity to look at things a little bit differently. And so as I approach things a little bit differently, I recognize myself when I'm stopping a car in that seat sometimes. I see that's myself. How would I want to be approached? How would I want to be stopped? Now, there are certainly times where I have information based on my radio that I know something's going on in that car and I have to handle that situation the way I have to handle it. But on a traffic stop, I mean, where there's middle of the day, I may handle it a little differently than someone else, right? But also, putting on this uniform, it gave me perspective in the sense that I know how dangerous traffic stops can be. right? They don't know me. I don't know what's in their car. I don't know what they just did. I don't know what their intent are. I don't know their mental health status. I don't know any of that information. And I'm walking up to a car, sometimes at night, with tinted windows. I can't see it. And that person's already on alert because I stopped them, right? So perspective was gained from being a child and going through it. So I understand how to treat people, and I understand the impact of just me turning on my lights can be. But as an officer, I also understand what it's like to pull up on a car and not know what's inside of it.
And if I could, let me bring out one scripture real quick. Israelite School UPK, we teach that the black man is the real Jews. And what's going on here in America is biblical. Lamentations 4:17. As for our eyes as yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us. Like, this is a brother telling us how he approaches the situation from his experience. But what about the oppressor? When he approaches it from an experience, he ain't got no, oh, well, I've been in this situation before. He's all go. He's not no stop, red light. And it says here, verse 18, they hunt our steps that we cannot go in our streets. That's the police, certain police, they hunting for only black people. We've heard reports as cops in New York, they were told don't stop whites and Asians. Basically only stop blacks and Hispanics. They hunt our steps. The scriptures say, our end is near, our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. That's that feeling of when you feel like something bad gonna happen when they pull you over, feeling like you could die right here. Verse 19, our persecutors are swifter than the eagles of the heaven. As you know, the oppressive symbol is the eagle. They pursued us upon the mountains. They laid wait for us in the wilderness. So they wait in certain places and hunt down black people, as we know from the scriptures. But we've got a couple people with their hands up. You want to speak on it, brother? Go ahead. Give him the mic.
I appreciate that comment.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
This kind of lined up with what the captain said. So I know what you said, Officer Commander
Wally, yes, sir.
Wallace.
Wally.
You had mentioned about you had to talk with your parents. Is it the talk that blacks usually have with their parents dealing with beliefs? No sudden movements, no don't talk back. Is it that talk?
That's the talk we're talking about.
Okay, so knowing you had to talk, what did make you go into the force?
Honestly, for me, it was about being a part of the solution. There's no better way of making a change within an organization than being in that organization and doing the best that you can to make it good. It was also about being a part of a team, right? Because I was an athlete. I did track and I did football. And so I also heard you mention the blue wall of silence and all that other stuff. And in some cases, that's a legitimate thing. But that's why I talked about those reforms that are in place and policies. Like, we must intervene. We've got policies in place that put an officer, that will put discipline on an officer if they view something and they don't intervene. And so I forgot what the original question was, so I started going off on a tangent.
He was saying, what made you become an officer, even though you had that talk about how the officers was acting?
I had a friend in college too, his dad was a sheriff, and he used to see us all the time. He used to pick us up at parties and stuff like that, and he was a brother too. And he would talk about the job and the interaction and day to day, and it sounded like a job that would be something that I would want to do, honestly. But this job has expanded to more than I thought it ever would. I thought I would be a street officer on patrol with my entire career. But I started to execute a plan because as I sat as a patrol officer, I wanted more responsibility and I wanted a voice at the table to make decisions on how things go in our agency. And that's why I began to promote. And so now I'm in a position where I'm a district commander and I've got 205 officers that work for me. And they do a phenomenal job each and every day. But they know if they step out of line, there's accountability, and they have to be dealt with. But they also know that if they are right, then I'm gonna have their back to the end. And so that, for me, was just being a part of the change, but then also having the ability to have a voice in this agency.
Go ahead.
All right. Back to the original question. How do you feel when IMPD officer in general is behind you when you drive and walks up to you on the street? I come from a very heavy militarized background. My whole family, starting from my grandfather that served in Korea. Just the simple fact that across seas, rules of engagement,
Oh, you too.
rules of engagement, where you will get court-martialed, and chances are you will go to Leavenworth. And I'm talking about terrorists. You have to be fired upon before you can even return fire. You have to return fire. Just knowing what's happening with our police across the country here in the United States, just a fear. Just as you was just saying, you don't know what's behind that tinted window, or then yeah, you gotta have some balls, excuse my language, to do your job. But our people fighting across seas against real terrorists, which I don't believe a lot of the people here in America are. Fighting war, to have to return fire, you have to be fired upon first. It's just a scary thing. I know I'm not the only one with these feelings. Your fear can be justified for killing somebody. That's
I appreciate that comment. So I think, like, we come together tonight to find solutions. I'm not sure that every police department has a different motto, but I know the one that I was in said that they had a community-oriented policing style. Do they have that here with the IPD?
I will comment on that. Most definitely, yes. Just like this opportunity that we're here this evening, as far as engaging in our community, I will say this on Commander Michael Wally's behalf. There's one thing that he does intentionally is to ensure that we are communicating with all members of our community and doing our best. In addition, we engage with girl, and who's ever watching, we encourage them to be a part of that because they do things such as what the POW Club used to do, which was the Police Athletic League. So you have officers that are engaging with kids, teenagers, being mentors, reading to them, helping them learn how to read, helping them learn how to do 2+2, basketball, football, and a host of other things. Just for that, sometimes many people have grown up without a father figure, so they provide that type of morale or morals in our youth. So
Right.
IMPD, all districts, we have community engagement sections, and their main focus, as well as our focus,
Right.
is to engage in our community, all parts of our community. Now, let's be real, you're not gonna like everything that we say, you're not gonna like everything that we do, but our goal is to partner with the community. So yes, we do our best. Matter of fact, we have something coming up on the horizon. I don't know the date, but we're doing pastures and pizza. Now, I know it sounds corny, but with that being said, it is our time to engage with our faith-based community and kind of do the same thing that we're doing right now, and having people come in and express some concerns. How can we come up with some solutions? How can we curtail the violence that is occurring within our city and try to bring a better resolve with community partnership?
That's right. And if I could, these brothers only have a little bit of time, so this is definitely clap that up for these brothers. And while these brothers is here, it's definitely profitable because now at least you brothers know 5 or 6 more brothers in the community that you can get with and know about, and we know some more officers that we can get with and know about as we move forward as a people. You know, I'm gonna get one scripture when Christ ran into some officers that work for the Romans, Luke 3:14, and the scripture says, and the soldiers likewise demanded of him, saying, and what shall we do? This is them talking to a black man named Jesus Christ. And he said unto them, do violence to no man, neither accuse any falsely, and be content with your wages. And this is what Christ told the soldiers of the time when he was on the earth. You know what I mean? So hopefully these brothers can definitely take that to heart as well. Neither accuse any man falsely, and be content with your wages. You know what I mean? And maybe push that to the rest of the officers as well, and do violence to no man. You know what I mean? Obviously, if you're defending yourself or stopping a crime, you got to do your thing. But as we see too often is cops taking out frustrations on the people. You understand? Caucasian cops taking out they call whatever they want, whatever feelings of hatred they have, which they do have. In the Isupk, we teach that the white man is the devil. So he's going to be doing devilish things, and you're going to have to be right with the Most High, so the Most High can keep you safe from any of these devils. But they will attack brothers, hit brothers, even shoot and kill brothers, stomp brothers out, all that. The scriptures say, do violence to no man, neither accuse any falsely, and be content with your wages. And so if the brothers want to stay a little longer, that's great, but I know they said they had a certain time slot. But let's definitely clap that up for these brothers, man, because this is, at the end of the day, before they was blue, they was black. You understand? So it's our brothers right here. You know what I mean? And Lord will, maybe we see them out and about, and maybe something good happens. Maybe we stop a crime. Maybe we help a brother together. You know what I mean? The Israelite School UPK is always out in the streets helping brothers. We have a hotline for brothers to call if they're in emergency situations. We have a police liaison as well. So definitely it's good for our people to come together so we can be more solid as a people and keep each other safe and accountable. You understand? Oh, the brother has something to say too over here. But like I said, officers, you know what I mean? You're no longer held here, but whenever you're ready, you know what I mean? Just let us know. You can roll on now.
I want to speak on that, the fear factor. I know we talked about that. A couple people mentioned fear. And also whenever you speak about crime or even police harassment or abuse, they bring up, you know, the violence that blacks emit on each other and Latinos emit on each other. And I think that same fear that the officers have been instilled with at times is the same fear that black folks have in themselves. You know, I grew up in the hood, I grew up around gangs, many guys who were scary dudes who ended up being murderers. Not because they were, you know, going out hunting or look to kill somebody, but they were just in a situation where they feared for their lives and they shot first, you know. And I think fear and that perception of the black man is what caused a lot of the situations that we find ourselves in right now. Whether we're talking about fear from a cop or fear from another black man. I also remember, I believe it's programming, what I'm trying to say, because I remember growing up, you know, as me and my friends started getting more involved in the streets and having conversations, I remember friends saying, I shoot a nigga, I kill a nigga, it's about me and him when it's life. I feel like maybe not in y'all locker rooms, but I feel like there's some locker rooms where the conversation is the same between police officers. If somebody comes to me with a gun or looks suspicious, I'm gonna shoot first and ask questions later. I feel like it's the same mentality on both sides of the coin between the police force and individuals involved in the street activity.
That's right.
No response to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what he said.
We got any closing comments? You guys gonna roll up?
We are. I just wanted to say I appreciate the opportunity to come and engage with you guys. Honestly, I think I gained some perspective just sitting in the room. I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you guys do within the community. There's some things that I think we can lean on you guys for. That's all ultimately for the betterment of the community, right? it's our job, role, and responsibility to engage with everyone, like Sergeant Stewart said, so we certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here. I left my card. The reason I left my card is because sometimes there's just a lack of understanding in everything that we have as an agency, what we've done as an agency. And whether that's because we don't put it on the proper platforms or the news doesn't report it, or you may not know where to get the information. Things as simple as where to get a crash report to how to file a complaint. I mean, everything run the entire gamut.
And if I could, I need a crash report too. My mother-in-law asked me to go to y'all to get a crash report for her. I'll talk to you.
So that's what, honestly, that's what this is about, right? It's about, now you have my contact information.
Right.
We may not agree on everything. We never will, right? But if you have a question about something and I can give you an answer, that's good. That's gold. It's a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And so this whole purpose is about building a relationship. And honestly, when we got the initial email, I was intrigued because we had not met with you guys. And I was like, I want to know what's going on. I want to know what their thoughts are. I want to know where their stances are. I want to know what their perspectives are. I want to be able to have a contact if I need to ask a question. Now, you've got a contact on the agency that wears a white shirt if you have a question, right?
We really appreciate that. And I know you mentioned something about reaching out to faith-based organizations and having certain, I guess, what was that, pizza?
Pastor pizza.
Well, we would like the same courtesy, priest and the pizza, maybe extend it to us that way that, like, as far as our community reach, they can know you guys really are for the community because they see, so a lot of times they just see a police officer in the car and they don't see him on a beat, walking a beat. And we understand this is a huge city. We might not be able to do that, but we have things like this all the time. So we definitely want you guys to come back and maybe we can coordinate and have something like that for our people.
I'm open to it. You put me in a hot seat. That's what I do. Keep me in a hot seat. But honestly, I'm being completely honest. We need more people keeping me in the hot seat down here.
Right.
When a homicide happens down here, I don't hear anything from the community. There's someone lost their life. Obviously, there's the mourning. There's the trauma that impacts the whole neighborhood. But no one calls me and says, that shouldn't happen in my neighborhood.
Right.
What are you going to do about it? Now, does it happen when it's up north? I get a phone call. And that's been one of my biggest concerns. In 2020, we started having meetings in the community after every homicide. We'd identify a location. We'd ask people in the community to come so they can learn about what happened, if they had information. And no one comes to the meetings down here. I get people are trying to survive. I understand that. But I need them to invest too. Hold me accountable, invest in what's going on.
Damn right. Think about taking intermission because we got the other topics, the potholes and the
Let's be back in about 15 minutes. What time is it now? We'll be back at about 6:35.
Now let's make it 20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay. It'll be 6:40. Appreciate everybody coming out. All right, yes.
Damn right. Got that up. And everybody watching online, we're going to have some more panelists for the second part of the discussion, going into the potholes, the rent increases and bills increases. So stay tuned. We're going to take them intermission.
A lot of times people come to us and they have real issues. We're trying to be like kind of like a barrier from initial, they don't have are trying to help them to jump for that, but at the same time not having the harsh treatment. So we definitely need people like yourselves that we can reach out to and say, hey, we have this guy that's done this. We want to tell you something, if you want to do this. Sometimes they don't want to.
We've worked it out with our homicide detectives if it's involved in that. Where it's no big thing, we meet them downtown, they get processed. So it's not where it's like, let's make a big scene. We've done that, especially if it's a high profile case or whatever it may be. We try to work with the community and say, we just want closure to the family.
Right. Yeah, we get guys like that. So now that we got a resource, we can definitely call you guys and say, hey, and then you can just refer us to what we need to do, because we deal with people who's on drugs, we deal with people that's trying to get out of a criminal life. We're trying to, from our perspective, better their lives spiritually. And that's only one part of it. But at the same time, we also are law-abiding citizens. So I really appreciate that. If you could, sponsor my brothers out.
Thanks, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Stay dry.
So if you're watching, we're gonna go on a little intermission. So be back at 6:40. We're gonna continue with the Indianapolis ISUPK City Hall meeting. We just had 2 police officers from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, and they put themselves on a hot seat and have said they want to reach out and work with ISUPK in order to help the lives of blacks and Latinos. What they say, priest and a pizza.
Some pastors of pizza.
Well, we
Yeah, we're gonna change. We need.
say priest and a pizza, so they can provide some of those funds and resources to give to the ISUPK.
Yeah.
Heard them say that.
Yeah, we definitely got collab. And I'm glad there's some brothers, man. That's a good thing. You know, I'm glad they got little sense not to send no devils up in here. You know what I mean? So definitely is good. And like I said, drop that scripture on them, man. That need to be their motto. Do violence to no man, be content with your wages, and neither falsely accuse any man. Like that's what IMPD focus on. What Christ told the soldiers to focus on. You know what I mean? Because obviously the cops, I need a little more money. Oh, okay, give me a little $1,500 to let something slide. 2,000, 20,000, let something slide. I'm in. You know what I mean? And they best believe it's happening. It's happening. They're getting a little extra money to not to look the other way or not push something that should be pushed or make one. It could be slightest thing. Well, let this go by. Let this crime. This is a rich guy. Don't. This rich guy, he donated to the police force. You can't arrest him. Yeah. Go ahead.
He said we never gonna look eye to eye. You don't know that ISUPK is full of ex-police officers. They change their life for Christ. You don't know that he come to class. Cap drop some truth on him. You never know. He might get super in the truth. You never know.
Right. For sure.
So, if I will, we still got an online ordinance. If you have any questions, we do have a question that this is really
tell them we starting at
and the question is, how can we solve the crime in our neighborhoods without relying on the police? Now, this is a question for people watching online. If you want to type that in, and let me repeat that again.
What time we said we was gonna restart? We're gonna restart.
It was 20 minutes.
6:40, but I think we're still live, right?
Yeah, we're still live, but I'm saying what time we're gonna start to get a new panel up here
Okay,
to get the rest of it. So 6:40, right?
6:40 when they get here, and I just had this for the online.
Tell them 6:40.
The online audience, if you want to type it in, your answer. How can we solve, and I say we, I'm talking about blacks and Latinos. How can we solve the crime in our neighborhoods?
No, I may put you don't know.
Relying on police. Now, this is a question.
You can't have a troop on.
We got a question in the room.
Yeah. Tell him he needs to be in here at 6:40 because we're gonna restart and we need him on the panel. We don't have enough panel.
To that question would be get to know your neighbors.
Right.
You know, we live in such blacks, Hispanics, and Indians. We so destroyed these days. You move into a neighborhood, they see the U-Haul truck and everything. They don't even want to introduce themselves. You know, me being outgoing, I'll go knock on the door and they act like I'm a stranger.
Right.
I'm about to live next to you for the next year or two.
So, you think this is a thing, or what? Does anybody else have a comment concerning that?
I definitely agree with the brother. It takes a community. You know, I will answer a question with a question. What do communities that don't have police do? You know, just imagine what would be like without police. You know what I mean?
All right.
Laws are going to be broken, rules are going to be bent. You know, how do we resolve them amongst the community? And it starts right there by getting to know each other, becoming a community, communing with each other, you know, and talking to one another, getting to know one another. Hopefully, a person will be less likely to commit a crime against a person that they know. Now, we all know there's situations where a family member has stolen from another family member, so we can't bank on that always. So I think if we have a community where it was more in touch, we can hold each other accountable. In this land and with the level of, I guess, rule breaking, it all really depends. You know, if somebody murders somebody, I think they should be held accountable. I don't know how we can move in the community with them, you know, and deal with a murder without it getting back to the legal system somehow. But if somebody is breaking into cars or breaking into houses, I think that's a community situation where we can, you know, talk about it. Somebody knows who that person is, and we can reach out to that person and find out, you know, something that in the program I work in, we start doing is called restorative justice.
Okay.
And restorative justice is a counterbalance to what we know as punitive justice, where, you know, the penal system and punishment for your crime. For restorative justice means you sit down with all those involved and get a better understanding of what happened, how it affected each other, and why. So that person still might be hard, be down on their luck. They might have a mental health issue that they haven't touched and worked on. And so we get to a place where we can have dialogue amongst all those involved in that crime, and maybe we can find a solution for everybody that's equitable, you know. I know that may sound like a pipe dream to some, but I don't see how else we could self-police ourselves if we don't hold ourselves accountable and find ways of being fair and just.
And if I could, what you're bringing out so heavy that what he's talking about basically is on some community policing type thing. And but even more than just as policing, which is, you know, kind of dealing with the crime after the fact. It really goes back to the leaders. Yeah, I mean, the leaders can be pushing the right agenda and pushing the people to do the right thing ahead of time. That's what the Israelite School of UPK is here for. We teach brothers to stop doing crimes. We teach brothers the truth about the Bible, so brothers can get away from even going towards crime. You know what I mean? But it takes leaders, though, to stand up and to be the ones to do events like today. Like the cop said, they running little community event things all the time, and they ain't getting the, you know, I guess they want a million people to show up. That's not how it works, though. You know what I mean? You do something like this, and it affect maybe 50, 100 people, 200 people watch it. That's where the effect is going to be. And you got to continue. The scriptures say the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. It start real small, and then it grow to become the biggest tree. You understand? So as for a long time, a lot of leaders haven't been able to solve the problems in the ghetto. That's why you need new leaders to come up and step up with like Commander Gianna, Israelite School UPK, brothers with new philosophies, brothers who are willing to do something that the previous leaders wasn't stepping on, wasn't doing. You know what I mean? Previous leaders wasn't trying to get down with the community, wasn't trying to do a lot of the things that we're doing outside, you know, or maybe they tried it and they failed. Right. You understand? But that's why you need leaders like this brother, leaders like the brothers in the Israelite School UPK, so we can continue to push the message, push that mo. Because trust and believe, his people that know him, they're going to see his name connected to it, and they're going to watch the video. And they're going to learn something new. Now, they may know, they may ask him, you know, that cop she was talking to me, I need to talk to him about something. You know what I mean? You don't never know how the Lord going to, you know what I mean, make the difference and things like that. You know what I mean? So what the brother was saying was heavy, is that community policing. And even the police is like, well, look, we need y'all in the community to really help us, because they, you know, they doing what they can. But at the end of the day, you know, their real priority is the white folks, is the oppressor. That's their real priority, is Carmel. If a crime happened in Carmel, I bet you they're gonna find out and go through and get it done and blah, blah, blah. And if they arrest them, they're gonna arrest them alive. How many white school shooters they arrest alive? And then a brother, he traffic stop, you know, he start jerking to make a run for it. He getting gunned down. I just opened my phone, and a dude in New York has a body cam, put it on the internet, went and did a mass shooting. A devil did a mass shooting, killing 8 people, shooting everything. Guess what? They take him alive. They took him alive. And he walking around with an AR shooting, killing people. How the hell you figure that? What you do? Put a trap hole in the ground? So at the end of the day, them brothers, you know what I mean, they good brothers, but the it's bigger than them. You see what I'm saying? The oppressor, he got a whole police force. He said 900 officers. It ain't 900 brothers. I guarantee you it ain't 900 brothers running around. You know what I mean? So what the brothers bringing out is community policing. We can't, and I brought the scriptures. We look to a nation that cannot save us. The white man not going to be the one that going to save us, man. We got to stop the murders on our own ways. You know what I mean? With the help of the Most High. You know what I mean? Either talking to brothers, either getting involved, either being a good example. However we do it, man. There's no holds barred how we get it done to save our people. We can't put a bar on it. Like, oh, I'm not going to go talk to him because, you know, blah, blah, blah. It might not look good. Now we're going to talk to whoever. We're going to get down with whoever and make it and help our people every way. That's what a man do. That's why we the men of this community. You understand? And there's nobody else but us that's going to do this job. You know what I mean? So I'm thankful for you brothers that came in here. We're going to have the other panelists come in, and then we're going to start the rest of the discourse. Go ahead, Warrior. Give him the mic. Give him the mic. Give him the mic. Give him the mic. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And if I may, just to go in with both of you brothers, Cap and brother, what's your name if I may? Mike. For community policing, you know, it's your community, it's your neighborhood. Let yourself be known. You know, just a quick example I can give, you know, coming into this truth. And it's something that we do in the Isupk Commander Junior High been doing this since 1969. But your spirit has to be there, you know. But just for a quick example, just like all the weed I used to smoke, you know, all the things I used to do, being around them same individuals, they know I can't. They know not to smoke around me. You just showing me straight disrespect, you know. My community, when my car's there, they know me. They tell me when my car ain't there, that's the only time they lock their front doors. Let yourself be known. You know what I'm saying? Just like Cap was just saying. You know, let yourself be known. It's your community.
Our community.
I'm just saying, like, if it's your neighborhood.
Oh, like, yeah, I feel you.
If you in that neighborhood, you the quick response force. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I just want to say it straight like this. Get with the Isupk, under Commander Junior High. Get with the good brotherhood, good sisterhood, and you will learn how to police your own environment.
Mm-hmm. And police yourself.
Now, Will, if we can check and see if we got any questions online, because people might have some questions or some answers for questions that we have asked. Any comments or concerns? Once again, this is the Indianapolis Isupk City Hall meeting. We invited all Blacks and Hispanics in Indianapolis to attend. See, the thing is like what the brother was saying. You got to meet with your community. You can't complain about issues if you don't come together and try to address them honestly, you know, because you're not going to get this floor going to City Hall. You know, they don't usher you out of there as soon as you say something coming from the heart. They're going to usher you right out. But here you just say what needs to be said so that we can tackle the problems. And we put the officers on the hot seat. You know, hey, we had to. Right. Because the thing is that if you want to associate yourself with a department that has been known to cause, corruption in the neighborhood, then you gotta defend that. Mm-hmm. I mean, that might be your personal perspective, but the news reports and the information says otherwise. Right. We know that in Isupk. We don't pull no punches. We can't, because people are dying if we pull punches. Right. So we're gonna hold these brothers accountable, or these men accountable, and see what they do.
Got a few comments on the internet. Al-Mak Kabbalah said it's definitely the mark of the beast, and what he's referring to is in the Israelite school UPK. The mark of the beast is when you in your hand or in your head,
when you take up a philosophy, or you take something into your hand that fights for the oppressor, which is the beast. So you have his mark because you fight for him. You take an AR and you go over to, some other country and kill for him. You take his mark. It means, you believe in him. You fight for him. Another comment is the history of the Baptist church, baptized church, is the same as the police. I think something about the Ku Klux Klan. A comment somebody said he didn't answer the question. I believe something on the cops. The sister said, beautiful speeches with the City Hall meeting. Get this knowledge so you can become encouraged to have more freedom of speech and edify you somehow. Only the ISUPK can embrace that. Wake up, O Israel. Damn right.
Let's clap for that. And if I will, we're going to get started in just a moment.
Let's play one song and then we'll let the other panelists come in at 6:40. We're going to get started. Let's play one song.
We're going to be talking about rent. I know that's an issue for a lot of black folks. We're talking about rent in the black community. So make sure you stick around. Online, we're going to entertain you with a little music.
Panelists in, get started.
I stay away from the streets and the trouble to get in. Trying to stay strong in this world full of sin, but they wanna bring us down, they wanna see us win. They wanna kill us all, Lord, tell me, can I live? Can a nigga live? Can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live? I know the hate's deeper than the color of your skin. So can I live?
Shinya.
Can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live?
Hey, slow, brother. Hey, look. Oh, it's a photographer, Elijah, right? What's on Christ? Set up, man. The cops just left. So you missed them, but you can get the rest of it. So you can set up wherever you want. You get already patted down and everything?
Killers teachers can't be my all alone kings and queens. Our nature was natural, not supernatural. Now they call it natural. All the words connected, always want to learn that you know. Don't let the shit go over your head. Same things have been in your but the skin just shed. Always try to convince you that it's all in your head. Just know you gotta be ready before you hit your bed. I stay away from the streets and the troubles we get in. Trying to stay strong in this world full of sin. But they wanna bring us down, they don't wanna see us win. Trying to kill us all, Lord, tell me, can I live? Can a nigga live? Tell me, can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live? I know the hate is deeper than the color of my skin. Can I live? Can a nigga live?
Hey, Lord Christ.
Tell me, can I live? I know the hate is deeper than the color of my skin.
Oh, also everybody, there's masks and some hand sanitizer placed in different places. Definitely use the hand sanitizer periodically. And if you want to put on a mask, put on a mask. Stay COVID free. Azad, you gonna be there with Madara, so make a good space for yourself, so you have space. We got glasses over here. If somebody want, well, we got glasses in here, all of them freshly clean. I can't drink strong out of plastic, man. What's wrong with you? It's not the same. Hey, Mark, about people,
I live long enough to raise my kids? Can I live long enough to see justice? I stay away from
ISUPK Indian. Oh, yeah. You can tell. You can tell.
They wanna kill us all, Lord, tell me can I live? Can a nigga live? Can I live? Lord, tell me can I live? I know the hatred's deeper than the color of your skin.
Make sure you use the hand sanitizer. I'll touch your hand. You gonna be on the panel. Magaba, can I get some of the hand sanitizer?
Let's do it. Let's see if it's on. Let's do it. All right, let's have a seat. We'll get it started.
All right, we're gonna get started in just one moment with the next segment of tonight's Indianapolis ISUPK City Hall meeting. We also want to encourage the online audience to answer questions and make comments because you're part of this community too, the Black and Latino community. Tonight's event is to empower us all so that we can take this information back to our respective communities and better our lives. We got to do this. We can't rely on the government. We can't rely on people that say come down here for one day and say that they're.
And if I could, we can't rely on the police. They trying to rely on us.
No.
So we got to police ourselves. We got to be a law. The scriptures say be a law unto ourselves, which means we got to stop ourselves from murdering. We got to stop ourselves from robbing. We can't expect the oppressor to stop us. Go ahead, Warriors.
But you said it, Cap. I just kind of tried to put it a little bit more nicer, I guess you might say. They come down here one day and say they black people.
Good cop, bad cop. We'll play.
Yeah, then one of them is the one that hits upside the head. So we hope it doesn't go like that. We hope that they are men of their word. They partner with us so that we can help the Black and Latino community. So with that said, we're going to get to the next segment and topic. Concerning rent. Now, unless you own your home, you're paying some form of rent or you're staying with somebody or something. So we're going to talk about that. So with that said, the way we're going to have the format is that I'm going to ask a question, and if you want to answer, just raise your hand, and you'll be given 3 minutes to speak on a particular question.
Barzal, need you up here.
So with that said, next question is going to be, if you pay rent, do you think the rent is affordable where you live? So would anybody like to answer that question? Unless y'all own your own home. The question is, if you pay rent, do you think the rent is affordable where you live? Okay, we got if you could, just explain to the people online who you are and a little bit about who you with.
Federal concert. I am Officer of 1,000, Azal Oriya from the ISUPK, started 1 West, 125th Street, Home, New York. Our job is to make sure that we spread this truth and build up our nation and bring awareness to situations like this on the topic, like one of these topics that we're speaking on now, which is the rent. So right now, currently, to address the question, currently I am a homeowner, but before I was a homeowner, of course, I paid rent like everybody else. And here's the funny part. When I say funny, I mean sad. It's cheaper to be a homeowner than it is to pay rent. A lot of people don't understand that, but it's cheaper to be a homeowner than to pay rent. If you're paying thousands of dollars for an apartment, and you don't even own the apartment, you understand? You ask it, you're at the apartment, you ask it for repairs, they take it forever to come make repairs. You might as well own your own house. And at least if you wait on somebody to repair something, you wait on yourself. Right. You understand? Instead of paying thousands of dollars a month for bare minimum, because that's what we're getting at in these places, man. And that's just one of the problems. And I just
want to open it up for anybody else that wants to speak on it. But to answer that question, hell no, it's not affordable. Yes, sir.
How you doing? For those who weren't in the first segment, my name is Micah, and I'm an artist and I'm a youth worker here in the city.
That's right.
And me and my wife got into a situation where our rent is affordable. We had a program that we were able to qualify for when we weren't making as much, and it has like a fixed rate. So we're blessed in that way. But we are interested in it's not ideal anymore for our living situation. We want to grow our family, and it's not an ideal location for that. And so we are looking, and what we're looking at is, the market is flipped right now. Since the pandemic started, rent has, what they're asking for what they have in certain places is like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? There's some real, has homes that they want thousands of dollars a month for right now. Like,
Right.
That's serious. And so, I definitely would say the rent situation is bad. And I hope to be like my brother here, Azza, and be a homeowner soon one of these days. But yeah, it's a horrible situation right now, the housing crisis.
And then if I could, to piggyback off of what my brother right here was saying, Mr. Micah, from pronouncing your name right? Yes, sir. Mr. Michael Wilson, and shout out to him. Mighty work with the youth, you know what I'm saying? As a wonder, this brother at UPK, that's what I'm trying to figure out. You know what I'm saying? Because he definitely has the spirit and he wants to build this nation. But the piggyback off of what my brother was saying was, like, they want thousands of dollars for these tore down, what's the word I'm looking for? How you say it? Dilapidated houses. And then when they finally do tear it down and rebuild it, right, they went from being thousands of dollars to now they want to sell the house for $200,000, $300,000. And then when we don't realize they're doing this, that they're pricing blacks and Hispanics out of the neighborhood. They're pricing this, they're putting these prices so high that we can't afford these houses. You understand? And not only is it hard to pay the bills where we're living at, but when we do decide to move, they pricing the houses so high that where the heck are we gonna move to next? You understand? And this is, and once more, if we look at the root cause of this, this is not an opinion, this is fact. Gentrification is the root cause of this.
Right.
Because they're gentrifying our neighborhoods, bringing all these, foreigners in, for lack of better words, you understand? Or lack of words that I, choose not to use. They're bringing all these foreigners in, and the same neighborhood that you've been living in for the last 20 years now becomes the hub. Now it's the top of the line neighborhood.
Right.
Like them same buildings that was run down that you tried to buy that they wouldn't tell you. All of a sudden now that's a smoothie shop. You understand? Then turn that into a Whole Foods. Yeah, Whole Foods. You understand? And what is that doing to our neighborhoods, black man, Hispanic man, black woman, Native Indian woman, Hispanic woman? What is that doing to our neighborhoods? It is tearing our neighborhoods down. You think it's building it up? It's tearing our neighborhoods down.
That's right.
Because where are black people gonna live at? Like everything that made our neighborhood culture, not to be long-winded, I'm sorry, but everything that made our neighborhood us, that we, our culture, right? Our culture. And when I say our culture, you know what I'm talking about. When I say black culture, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We talking about hip hop music, understand? With the graffiti on the wall, you get what I'm saying? The hip hop graffiti, you know
barbecuing.
Yeah, barbecuing, you understand? When I say Hispanic culture, we talking about more barbecuing, low riders. When I say Native Indian, we be talking about more barbecuing. You understand? And they take that culture out of our neighborhoods and they inject it with white culture, for lack of better words. And I have a question. When they come and gentrify our neighborhoods, what is white culture?
Right.
Now,
Right, exactly. Death of your culture. That's what white culture is, and that's what they're doing when they gentrify our neighborhoods. They're gentrifying them, and it turns to white culture. What is white culture? To steal everything that belongs to you, and that's what's happening in our neighborhoods. And now, like I said, the rent's too high, you can't afford them. Your granny lived in this house her whole life, passed it down to your mom, she tried to pass it down to you, but now somebody came and bought it from up under you. Now what you do, black man, Hispanic man?
And then if I could, another problem that's happening is when you're dealing with the oppressor, you can't walk into the white man's bank and say, look, I've been paying rent for that $1,200 a month for 6-7 years. I want to own a home and my rent to be $500 a month, and I get the loan and this and that. White man ain't gonna give you that loan like that. A lot of times that's another way he keep black people from home ownership. You understand? I watched a video of when it was oppressors talking about their times where they witnessed white privilege. And it was a white woman, her and her husband. Neither one of them had a job. They went into the bank and got a $100,000 loan for a house off the strength that they were white. And she said, well, I believe that was white privilege because we didn't even have a job. Yeah. So you dealing with that. And then since we're talking about some of the city infrastructure things, I went to school for city planning. And another thing you'll notice in certain neighborhoods, like the neighborhood here in Indianapolis, over the 10th Street, Michigan Street, and New York Street. One ways. The use of one ways is a way to devalue a community. How does it devalue a community? When you have a street that's a one way, that means traffic is going one way. That shuts down a lot of businesses and shops because now they have half as many people who can stop at their shop. There's half as many times where they can peel off and turn into the parking lot. If the parking lot's on the other side of the street and you're on a one-way, it's going to be harder for you to get to that other side. Traffic goes faster down one ways than two ways. If you notice, if you live here in Indianapolis, look at the busyness of 10th Street. When you go 10th and rural area, look how busy that intersection is. If it's just people, pedestrians walking, pedestrians going to little shops, pedestrians talking, hanging out, that's a two-way street. Traffic has to go slower on a two-way street. When you go a few blocks down to Michigan and New York, what are they? One ways. Notice the difference in economic activity that you'll see on 10th Street to New York and Michigan Street. Instead of the black community having 3 10th Streets, where we had businesses and shops and barbershops and foods, eateries, and even our school was on 10th Street. Instead of having 3 10th Streets, you only have one because Michigan, New York, they turn into a one ways. So now traffic is just ramming through the street, ramming through the neighborhood, and you can't open up a shop on no street like that. You can't open up a shop on no highway street. And you'll notice when you go, for people who live in Indianapolis watching this, if you drive down Michigan and New York Street, you'll see a ton of businesses that are boarded up. Why are they boarded up? Because the car traffic's going down so fast because of the one way. And city planners know this. And then when the whites move in, they'll make it a two-way street. You have to drive real slow down the street. People be walking, kids be playing, shops be opening up. The whole community will change. The white man, he uses different things to destroy our communities, man. Go ahead.
So, does anybody want to respond or piggyback off of that comment?
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Anybody else want it before I give you? You know I'm long-winded. I
want to remind everybody we got 3 minutes.
Right.
3 minutes time.
If I could, what Captain Potts brought out is so heavy because, like, I've lived in the city my whole life, and there's a street called Central. It used to be a one-way my whole life. Guess what happened? Now it's a two-way. And not only is it a two-way, but you see the old buildings now became little bars. And them the kind of bars that we kick it at. You understand? Like, you look at some of the names on these bars, and you know that there are no black people allowed in there. You understand? You go in there and order a drink if you want to. Be careful.
Right.
You understand? But like, what Cat brought out is so heavy because when you look at the metro system, they're not even sugarcoating no more. They put in a new bus line called the Red Line.
Right.
Called the Red Line. And then they're doing another one. You understand? They're doing another one. And what's that? What's that? The purple line? And look who it's inconveniencing.
Mm-hmm.
Look what neighborhoods it run through. And who is it servicing?
Right.
And we still don't get it. And once more, what do you think is happening with all these neighborhoods? These neighborhoods is once more being gentrified. The rent is skyrocketing through the roof, and there's nothing that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians can do about it because we don't have economic power. You understand? We think we can vote our way out of this situation. We can't.
Right.
We can't. We can only get her out of this situation if we come together as a community. So
Yeah, right.
Really appreciate that comment. Clap it up for that. So it's pretty much answered this question, but we're gonna ask it anyway. And the question is, do you think the city of Indianapolis has enough affordable housing for Blacks and Latinos?
I'll start that off. No, I do not believe Indianapolis has enough affordable housing for Blacks and Latinos.
right.
We're being pushed out of the housing market. And then a lot of the houses, they don't even make houses for sale a lot of times that Blacks and Latinos can afford. I remember I have a cousin who got with Habitat for Humanity, and they built them a shotgun style house. Why ain't they building a little more of those? At least some them houses Black people can afford.
Right.
They're building houses, you know, 3 or 4 stories, $300,000. They're not building houses as we can afford.
Right.
You understand? If they do have a house we can afford, they'll leave it torn up and torn down.
Right.
They want to make everything in this city for the whites, but they don't do nothing for Blacks and Latinos in this city. And that's what I want to say about that.
Appreciate that. Anybody want to respond to that comment, or they have their own?
I'm not trying to change the subject, because it definitely has to do with living, and is things affordable? You know, we in a society now, if you even get put in the white man's system,
Mm-hmm.
good luck finding a dollar. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Good luck finding a job. Shalak.
Shoot.
All right.
Damn right.
And that's another thing. The point of us talking is so that we can arrive at solutions.
Right.
You know, so voice your opinion, get it off your chest, vent. You know, if we can't do it here, where can we do it?
Right.
That's what Commander Junior Hunter set this forum up for, this platform. So make sure they, say whatever you need to say. You know, we all family here.
Right.
That's how I look at it. So, Will, got another
Can I
question.
speak on it real quick?
Okay, yeah, go ahead, bro.
I want to speak about gentrification. I remember when I first heard the word, I was in college in Chicago, and I saw an apartment. I was shown an apartment that was in Humboldt Park. And if anybody knows about Chicago, they know Humboldt Park is the biggest Puerto Rican community outside of San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Right.
When I told people I'm moving to Humboldt Park, they're like, "You moving to Humboldt Park?"
Right.
You know, and we got a really nice apartment for really cheap because the neighborhood was still bad. And the guy who was fixing up the houses, an investor, talking about gentrification, about going into the neighborhoods and buying old houses and renting them out and selling them whatnot. And I didn't think anything was bad with it because I was a Black man moving to predominantly Puerto Rican and Black neighborhood. Our neighbor was Black. Now we were upper mobile, we were in college, and my neighbor was professional and whatnot. And so I didn't think anything about it until I got older and started seeing how gentrification was working, how in other neighborhoods where it had already started, like in the Gold Coast and Cabrini Greens, how they got moved out to the north side, to the south side, to the suburbs.
Right.
And I'm seeing the same thing happen here. A lot of Black folks started moving out to Fishers, and moving out to Brownsburg,
Right.
and other communities. And what we have is, what they call a white flight. When we used to move downtown and then all those big houses back in the day, white people were like, "Oh, we gotta go."
Right.
We
Right.
had black flight. You know what I mean? So we left our neighborhoods and our communities stranded. And, I hear people talk about that buy back the block. And that's, what we have to do. Instead of buying up these houses, these guys, they're gold miners. They're just coming over here, finding some land, some property, and hoping that they can flip it.
Right.
Versus investing in the community, buying up a property and going to rent it. Waiting to find somebody who's from that community to lease it to on a lease to own agreement. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so we have to come together and start buying back our blocks,
You're absolutely
buying back
right.
our community.
Absolutely
So,
right.
my whole thing investor or savvy person, but I know there are some very savvy people who look like us, black folks, Hispanics, who look like us, who have ideas on how to invest in our community and buy multifamily properties and are doing their job. You know, I think we need to have more promotion of those individuals. A guy down, I believe in Atlanta or Texas, I see him on Instagram, Jay Morrison, I believe is his name. He has the Tulsa fund, and you can invest in his Tulsa fund, and they buy multifamily properties,
Right.
and fix them up, keep them black, keep them rent controlled, and keep it affordable, but also keep it good. They don't let it turn to the projects. People don't realize there was a time when the projects were nice moving. People were like,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna move into these projects, but then when the landlords decided, I'm not gonna do that for those niggas.
Right.
And that's how niggas started treating it, the project.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we need to have property where we own and we feel good about taking care of it. A landlord who will come and say, hey, listen, I cut you a discount if you cut the grass, if you keep up the property. You know what I mean? Like you said, more community-minded folks, you know what I mean? Who want to buy up to community for the community, and that's an investment. A lot of these people, they don't live in the community. They're not investing in the community. They're just investing in themselves, trying to make money off the community.
Absolutely.
And so we need to, work with those who are doing the work until we have more of us who are going to do the work. We need to find those individuals out there who are doing what we're talking about and get behind them and promote them more.
Absolutely.
They're right.
And if I could, I would like to piggyback.
Okay.
Like what your brother brought out was very heavy. You understand? And if I could, to piggyback off that, another key thing that we need to stop doing is a nation of people is selling our property, selling your houses. Don't sell, if you absolutely have to sell your house, make sure that house goes to, if you can't keep it in your family, keep it in your nation.
Right.
You understand? Keep it in your nation. Sell that house to a black or an Hispanic or a Native Indian family. You understand? Because if you look at white wealth, right, and not just white wealth, but if you look at what they do, when they sell a house, who do they sell it to?
Mm-hmm.
They either sell it within their family or within their nation. You understand? They make sure that their money and whatever access that they have circulate 5 to 6 times and add more wealth and more revenue to it before they even think about selling it. You understand? Like, as a homeowner, here's something that we gotta understand. Like, every week we get a letter in the mail asking us to sell our house. And I told my wife, I said, tell them a crazy number. They keep sending this letter. Tell them 5 million, just to see what they say. I said, they give us 5 million, we sell it. And then we gonna buy every other house around here. I said, but before we sell, we gonna dig up the backyard, because it's either gold or oil bird down there. They pay that price. But we do that because we're not selling. That's the point. I'll turn it into an Airbnb before I let an oppressor buy my house.
That's right.
You understand?
You gonna go back and forth, right?
In the mic section right now.
Yeah, another comment, brother?
Yes, I did. But no, you jogged my memory. Like a lot of times, there's this article that I seen online. This is an old newspaper article where I think a Jewish person was saying, like what you said, every Jewish dollar circulates throughout the Jewish community before it leaves, and then they diminish the black community in the conversation. Like the black dollars, so they get the money, they run to the store, they run and buy from this, and they run and buy from that one. And I hear a lot of times, I get tired of hearing people, excuse my language, shitting on us, even in our own community.
Right.
And they forget about Black Wall Street.
Right.
They forget about all the times that we've got an organization, organized a community, and making our way out of the struggle. How somebody, an oppressor, has pulled us back down,
Absolutely.
has destroyed that. I get really tired of always trying to talk down like we're not trying to get it together. You know what I mean? And so I just want to bring light to that we are doing our thing. There are plenty of us out there doing our thing, but we have competition. We have an oppressor who wants to see us stay under their
Right.
They don't mind if one of you come up, but when y'all start talking group economics, and
It's a problem.
It's a problem, you know. And so that's one of the things. Like we have to be careful, not talking about group economics, just be aware of the situation that we are in.
Right.
We are behind enemy lines. We are still,
Absolutely.
at war.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
we gotta move like G's. We
That's
go to silence
Yeah,
sometimes.
right.
We gotta keep some of our ideas to ourselves. And keep
Absolutely.
it in house, and work the system from our angle, from our purpose.
Absolutely. Somebody get this man a flyer.
So I will. Okay.
He had a statement too. Barzal had something to say too.
Okay.
You can use that mic.
One of our panelists speak, if you will.
So I just wanted to hit on something that both these brothers said that was so heavy. You understand? Drawing from, the brother that said he lived in a majority Hispanic neighborhood, you understand, when he was younger, and the brother next to me that said that he would much rather sell his house to a so-called black or Hispanic than to sell it to a devil. One thing we gotta realize as people is that Hispanics are also our people. You understand? Like that's one of the big things with within our communities when it's half Hispanic, half so-called Negro, is that there's always some kind of beef that's going on between us.
Right.
Because of the hatred it is that not only Christianity, but as well as Catholicism, I believe, like Catholics, you understand, like that white supremacist doctrine it is that's taught to all of us. It's built up a hatred in us as a people, and we try to force one another out of the neighborhood.
Right.
Whether it's trying to buy up houses, which, Hispanics, they just blessed enough with their hands that they're able to, go out and get construction jobs where they can buy homes and do all these, fix them up, do all these wonderful things, which sadly brothers hate, not knowing that eventually the oppressor is going to gentrify them just as they have us.
Right.
You understand? But we always try to force one another out of the neighborhood, when at the end of the day, what we need to do is accept one another. You understand? Recognize that so-called Hispanics, blacks, and Native Indians, and we are all brothers, we're all one nation, that the only way we can really survive in this nation known as America is if we come together as people.
Absolutely.
Right.
I will go for the next line of questioning.
I think didn't Barzal, you had something you had?
Yeah. So,
One of the brothers of the community.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. Is this on?
Yep, we hear you.
Not talking to it.
Going back to what the brother said, how we had our, Black Wall Streets and Rosewoods, we had all these things going for us, whole entire black communities. And then we had the destruction of the black family with integration. There's case studies, statistics, and everything proving and showing that we were much stronger. Our morality was more on point. Before we integrated with the same process.
Right.
We know we were attacked, bombed, and everything. And when we wasn't with them, they was upset that we, elevating ourselves without their, hanging on their coattails.
Right.
Doing what they call depression. Right?
Right.
So that being said, with Martin Luther King's evil dream, integration has been probably, I have to say, maybe 70% of what's happened to our people.
Right.
Appreciate that comment, man. So, we definitely get some clarity on some of the issues that plague the Black and Latino community. So we're gonna go to the next topic of questions, and that's bills. If you like me, bills is a thing that you gotta contend with.
Right.
So if I will, first question is gonna be, Are you concerned about the rising cost of utilities? A couple of examples are electric, gas, water, internet, cable, etc. Anybody like to comment on that?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on it. I'm very concerned about the rising cost of the utilities and the bills. And the main reason I'm concerned is because we don't have no recourse.
Right.
If they were to come out tomorrow and say, look, we're going to double everybody's bills because of this reason, that reason, and they could just come up with any reason out of any thin air, we'll have no recourse.
Right.
But to come up with all this money just to keep up with all these things. And I think it's a scam. I think it's a hustle, because if this is supposed to be a free market and all this and that, there should be options and ways that we can power our houses other than just depending on the system, depending on the oppressor. Because at the end of the day, if he just starts hiking up the bills, which he did this winter, because of reasons unforeseen and all these other reasons, we are just basically, he just got us by the balls, excuse my language. And we're just screwed to run around and become slaves of the 21st century. And so I'm very concerned with that, because we don't have no other way to keep our things going. I think we, as a community, as Black people, it's time we start trying to invest in it, whether it be Black community solar panels or Black community heaters that go in your house, back to fireplaces, whatever. You know what I mean? I just think it's better when a man can stand on his own instead of depending on another man for what he needs. That's all.
Appreciate that comment. Would anybody else like to add to it?
Yes. Me and my wife had the privilege this past winter to travel out to the Southwest, and we stayed in what's known as a Earthship. If you look on YouTube, Google Earthship, it'll break it down. But basically, it is a sustainable home built off grid in a manner that it basically recycles the water from rainwater to filter it out so that it's drinkable water, water you can bathe in, and that water goes through a system and it's cleaned out through plant filtration to be used in the toilet, and then from the toilet it goes out to the yard and to the grass.
So like a super aquaponics system.
Yes, exactly. It has, this particular house had, like, the way it was set up, it was out there in New Mexico. The windows are stationed in a way where the sun comes in and the floors are made out of material that absorbs the floor. Right. Yeah. And like, I got scared. It was like it snowed one day and it was snow covered window. I'm like, oh wait. I'm like, I hope we don't freeze overnight. You know, it stayed warm, it stayed nice. As the sun came up, the snow melted and it heated up the house. I'm like, oh, this is dope. You know, and so, like you said earlier, it's not about, I don't like being on the bitch fest. I don't want to sit and talk about everything that's wrong. I want us to make sure we're putting out there information that's like, yo, there's options.
Right.
There's challenges to those options. You got to, where we were in New Mexico, they worked with the municipalities to make sure that they are within the law. They found some area where they are allowed to do this type of living in residence. And so we will have to do our due diligence and finding a way to make those sustainable changes to our community. But I think there are ways, that we can do better and eliminate the bills and eliminate paying into the system that has nothing for us.
Absolutely. If I could, to piggyback off what the brother was saying, like before I addressed what Brother Michael was saying, what you had said, sir, like we was talking about the bills. Like it's funny though, because even before I was in the truth, I used to say this: the cost of living costs more than living. Like the cost of living costs more than living. You understand? Like the bills and everything that we have to pay, this stuff is crazy. And maybe I'm mistaken, I was never big on politics, but I could have sworn that, somewhere where them devils got together and started writing the Constitution that they said there will be no taxation without representation, right?
Right.
So why the hell every time I look at my bills, there's always some new tax on there that I didn't agree to.
Right.
I'm surprised we don't have an air bill. You understand? Like, pretty soon they're gonna charge you for air.
Don't suggest that.
Right. Pretty soon, it's coming soon. The air bill. You gonna look at your bills one day, you're gonna get a brand new bill, and it's gonna be $300 for breathing. You know, because the oppressor is truly the devil. You understand? Like the oppressor. And this is the funny part. You ask most modern kids this nowadays, like, where does the air come from? They don't even tell you the trees no more because they just assume that it's wrapped up in the rest of the bills, like the internet and cable bill or something. You know, somebody somewhere got generators pumping air. No, it's the trees. Why do we have to pay a water bill? The president don't own the goddamn ocean. He don't own the trees. He don't own any of this stuff. He's charging you to live on land that he has stolen from our guide brothers. You understand? The oppressor is truly the devil, man. And he hypes this stuff up so much that what do you do as a black man, an Hispanic man, and a Native Indian man besides struggle from paycheck to paycheck?
Right.
Because he has taken all sense of identity from us. And what that means is this, is that when we learn to come together as a community, none of this stuff is really going to affect us. You understand? When we learn to lean on each other, because what Brother Michael brought out was also a heavy point. This is what I want to address. When you was talking about when he was in Mexico, they had to get with the oppressor to make sure that the things that they were doing were legal and code worthy, because the oppressor has made it illegal for you to collect rainwater. You understand? He has made it illegal for you to have solar panels that generate energy to a certain extent. You cannot go off the grid. If you go off the grid, he will come hunt you down and lock you up because he wants his money. You understand? And we're struggling in a society. You know, this is America, the land of the free. We're supposed to be the greatest country on earth, right? According to the oppressor. We live in a country that prints their own damn money. They print the money. How can a country be broke when they print their own money? But yet and still, they're broke, and that's why the bills are skyrocketing through the roof. You understand? Like, and that should tell you something, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, on what this country truly is, man. This ain't nothing but a POW camp. You understand? We are prisoners of war, and this country is set up to keep you struggling from paycheck to paycheck, so you'll never have nothing else to think about besides how to goddamn survive. Because when you get a moment of clarity to actually think, you start to wonder things like, what if I do this? What if I get this? What if I do that? And that's what they don't want you to do. They don't want to see this right here. They don't want to see black men and women getting together. They don't want to see Hispanic men and women getting together. They don't want to see Native Indian men and women getting together to come up to solutions to their own problems. They want you to suck on the teeth of their oppressor. Right. And that is something that we just refuse to do here in the Isupk.
That's right.
All right. I really appreciate that comment. Brother got a comment also?
Comment. So I just wanted to say is that I don't live out in Indianapolis. I don't know exactly, how much it is that the bills have increased out here. But I do know one thing, as an Israelite from the tribe of Gad, as a so-called Native Indian, and ultimately as a so-called black man, the rise in the bills does worry me, because that means that more of my people are going to be living on the streets.
Right.
There are going to be more blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that cannot afford, their electricity bill. They can't afford their rent, all the things it is we have to pay for in this empire. We won't be able to afford these things, and it's going to mean that my people are suffering out here in the streets, suffering in the cold and in the heat. You understand, and dying, and nobody even knowing about them, because in America, who cares about a homeless person? You understand? Right. Ultimately, who cares about a so-called black, Hispanic, or Native Indian? You understand? But thankfully, through the teachings of the ISUPK under Command Johanna, you understand, we have been taught to be selfless instead of selfish.
Right.
You understand? When there's a brother or sister, who is struggling out here on a bill, who's going to be evicted and happen to live in the streets with their children, with their wife or with their husband, however it is you want to put it, us as a people, we should come together and try to help that brother or sister.
Right.
Even if that means that we got to sacrifice a little bit of money out of our own pockets. You understand? Like we can try to get all the riches it is that we want in this empire, but at the end of the day, it means nothing if your brother is suffering. You understand? Or if your sister is suffering. We got to look out for one another, and that's the only way is we're going to come up out of this condition is if we really start to look out for our own people, whether you are Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian. That's the only way. You understand? And I got to thank Commander Johanna and the ISUPK for teaching our people, you know, how it is that we should really come together as a nation and to really love one another.
That's right. And if I could, Commander Johanna also has said and suggested that they turn the churches into homeless shelters throughout the weeks. And that is Commander Johanna's and the ISUPK's official stance on homelessness and a lot of these problems and issues is that we turn the churches into homeless shelters to shelter our people in different times of need.
And if I will, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge under Commander Johanna has done outstanding work for the Black and Latino and Indigenous people here in Indianapolis by feeding our community, counseling, clothing. So you definitely got a resource here. You can come right here to 35, if we could.
3532 North Keystone Avenue, phone number 317-453-0519. Call that number, get a hold of the EPK.
That's right. Clap it up for that. And then also, when you all online, you can go to the website, isupk.com. If you want to really get involved, you might say, well, I don't live in Indianapolis. Well, you can help the community, the Black and Latino and Indigenous people here in Indianapolis. Go to the website, and there is a link there where you can donate. Man, do some tangible good. Don't just say, well, yeah, throw a fist up and say, yeah, I'm glad you brothers is, getting together and doing this. No, be a part of it. If you're not here physically, donate. No, we're not going to beg you for money, but we're going to tell you this is a good place to start. Commander Johanna has been an excellent steward of your resources, and the ISUPK has been helping our Black and Latino and Indigenous people community since 1969. So,
and we have schools all over the country. So if you're in Detroit, LA, Chicago, New York, don't matter. Go to the ISUPK website and you'll find a school in your city.
Yeah, right.
And if I could.
Well, let's go to the next topic.
If we will, we got another question, and this one, man, this one is one that affects us all. If I will, how do you feel about the current price of food and supplies? Would anybody like to take that one?
Anybody want it before I touch it?
Go ahead, I know you on it. You the supply master. Oh, it's the panel first and then the audience. So if you're in the audience, just let the host know so you can get the mic.
Also, if we will, let's make sure we monitor the questions online because people online can also answer this question. And I'm going to read it again just real quick.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about the current price of food and supplies? Let's get some comments online also, and let's get the brother on our panel.
Absolutely. How do I feel about the prices of the food and supplies? It is criminal. You understand? The food prices and the supply prices, man, like that stuff is criminal. You understand? And once more, most of the price for the ISUPK became the convention because the wisdom and the teachers that I get from the school taught me to prepare for what was to come, and I've seen it. Being under the stewardship of Mighty Man, I was able to see what was about to transpire in the world. So I was able to actually stock up on food and supplies and things of that nature. So, it don't hit me in my household as hard as I see it hit my other brothers and sisters. So I help out where I can, absolutely. You get what I'm saying? But I remember, like, prime example, going to get a thing of toilet paper that used to be $10. Guess what it is now? $20. You understand? Paper towels used to be $1. Guess what they are now? $5. You understand? Like, and my thing is this: if we know anything about the oppressor, he's always cutting down a forest somewhere. As we speak right now, he's somewhere cutting down a forest and killing some type of animal. That's just what he does. And then he has the nerves to put the prices on this stuff so far-fetched. You know what he's trying to do. If you have any conversation, you know what he's trying to do. He's trying to starve out a certain demographic. Who is that demographic? It is us, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man. Because when you have so much money in this world, like, the Jeff Bezos of the world, and give me some more rich Elon Musk. Like, these people, Donald Trump, like, these people have so much money, right? They have tax cuts for whatever they buy. They have tax cuts for whatever they buy, including their groceries. But you, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, and woman, you have to pay top dollar. You understand? You have to pay top dollar. And the solution to this problem is very simple. It's community. It's nation. That's how we have to start operating. Instead of us going to the oppressor and keep buying all this expensive food, we need to find a black farm and support it with everything that we have. All of us in here need to go put it on account right now. You understand? Buy bulk. Buy bulk. You understand? If we come together as a nation and we go buy 2 cows, all of us would be good for a year and a half, 2 years. No problem. Just on beef alone. We need to learn, like my brother brought out, aquaponics. We need to get back to the simple stuff, to gardening, to sustain ourselves. Because if America shut down right now with this food supply, half of us is going to starve. Half of us is going to starve because we depend on the oppressor so much for food, for whatever we need. You understand? And we need to get away from that, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man. Get back to the basics. That's all I got.
And if I will, I want to read this comment from Alawak, quote, Balama. And his comment is, talk about the tithes, which are our nation's bank. Now, if you know anything about the tithes, that was 10% required to go to the priest of God.
Right.
So does anybody in the room want to tackle that?
I want to talk about it. Yeah, the tithes is 10% you would give to the priest for the widowless, for the widows and the fatherless, and for the poor of the people. That's what's supposed to, the money, the money that the churches is getting is supposed to be the money that's our safety net for the black community.
Right.
That's what it's supposed to be. Through mismanagement of funds over many generations, we don't have access to none of those funds. That's why the Israelite School UPK tell you pay your tithes to the ISUPK. Because we are paying rents, we are paying light bills, we are paying for funerals, which the churches over years have not been paying with the tithes.
Right.
We just went to a event the other day where they're trying to make a community response team. But they had 20 churches on the news talking about this community response team.
Right.
If they really wanted a community response team, those 20 churches could fund it easy.
Right.
We talking $500 a month. That's $10,000 a month. That's 5 brothers, 2 vehicles, and a building right there. That's what you need for Indianapolis. And that takes 20 churches putting up $500 a month, which is about one of their car notes in them churches with them pastors. Because none of them driving buckets. They all driving fancy cars.
Right.
So what's going on is the leadership of this community is taking the funds, the tithes from these communities, and not putting it back into the people. And that's what we need to get back to. That's what the Israelite School of UPK does. We take the tithes that come in here and we put it back into the people, back into the communities. You know what I mean?
That's
and,
right.
and that's where it's supposed to be.
That's right.
Now, if I will, it's so what you were saying.
And let me say one more thing, because what the brother brought up is heavy, is that he don't want to just complain about the problems. He wants solutions. That's what UPK does. You understand? We do the solutions. We went to the event and they said we need 600 people in the state house to get a bill passed so we can get a community response team. We don't need to do that. We got a community response team right here in the Israelite School of UPK. We respond to emergencies all the time.
Right.
You understand? We got everything we need in our communities to do what we want. If we want community policing, we got what it takes to do it. We can community police ourselves as a people.
That's right.
That's what we push in the UPK.
Absolutely.
Right. So does anybody else want to comment?
When it comes to these prices out here on food, and did y'all mention gas?
Mention gas.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to say something to anybody that voted for a damn devil that said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't no black man. Look what he's doing to us when it comes to even being able to get from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Yo, but it's a shame. It's a shame. I don't want to say it the best. It's criminal.
Right.
It's criminal. You know, all these billions of dollars we sending over there to them devils in Ukraine and Russia.
Right.
And just as you brought it on earlier, we taking care of them. Coming over here, we can't even tell. Yo, we got gentrification to worry about black men, Hispanic men, and Native Indian.
That's right.
You know, so I'm not going to go any further with that. That's
Okay. I'm looking for questions.
Go ahead.
What everybody's bringing out is so heavy, and it makes me think of one thing, like when he said, you know, we get out here and we vote, and what Cap said, they said they need 600 people. Where, sir?
The state house to go walk down on the state house and get them to make us do something for the black community that we can do for ourselves.
Oh man, they need us to vote. They need us to march and protest. Basically, the same things we've been doing for the last 100 years, 60 years, 50 years, 30 years, 20 years. Just last year, the same thing we've been doing. And here's the funny thing. And when I say funny, of course, I mean sad. Like, we just witnessed all these black people lining up to vote again, trying to put this person in office, trying to put this person in power. And I was watching. I was watching the voting booths. You know who I didn't see go vote? I didn't see the Arabs go vote. I didn't see the Africans go vote. I didn't see the Chinese go vote. I didn't see none of these other nations go vote. But somehow all of them have economic power. I can take you to a Chinatown in every major city. I can show you where the Arabs have businesses and gas stations and chicken joints. I can show you where the Chinese people have their hair spots where they just sell weave and all that other crap. I can and they build Chinese shops where they, you know, killing your dogs and cats and serving them to you. I remember in the hood we used to see stray dogs and cats all the time. You don't see them no more if there's a Chinese shop around. If there's a Chinese restaurant in your neighborhood, you will not see any more stray dogs or cats. You barely gonna see a raccoon or a squirrel. You understand? Right. They're killing them and feeding them to you. Bourbon chicken my butt. You're eating Fido. You understand? But once more, you don't see these people, you know, going out to vote. You don't see these people having to have these kind of discussions. I wonder why. Let that sink in, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man. Let that sink in. Why don't we see the Chinese people having to come together and say, you know, we don't have the resources for this. They're pricing us out of this. This is too high for us to afford. All these people have economic power. And when you have economic power, for some odd reason, they give you stuff. We see the celebrities. You spend all your money on a new goddamn iPhone, and the celebrity gets it for free. The celebrity had millions of dollars, and they just give them one here. Once the niggers see you with it, they'll want one. Come on, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man. It's time. It's been past time. Join yourselves to your brothers, man. Let's start moving as one. Like the scriptures say, one body. We need to start moving as one body, thinking as one body. You understand? Now I've seen cartoons back in the day. We need to be Voltron in this thing. For the younger generations, Power Rangers. You understand? Remember they used to come together and be one body. They would fight and defeat the enemy. It's time, man. Every black, Hispanic, and Native Indian within the sound of our voices, you need to come together, man. You have to. It's survival at this point. It's been survival. That's all I got.
For the sake of time, we do have to move on to the next line of questioning. If I will, if I could. We're going to take an intermission here in a little bit. If the brother got some food out there he's selling, so make sure you support black business, black Latino business. So if I will, this is the last question until the intermission. And it is there a grocery or supply store close to where you live? Think of food deserts. Does anybody know anything about that term, food desert? Would anybody like to respond?
Would you break it down, sir? Food desert?
Okay, a food desert is like an area where food is scarce. Like that's why they call it a desert. Like, you don't have any stores. A lot of elderly people can't go shopping because there's no stores in their neighborhood.
Right.
And think about this concerning the Black and Latino communities, our neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
So let me read it again. Is there a grocery or supply store close to where you live?
Schlock, if I may, I want. Coming from Post Road, you know, from Washington all the way to 56th Street. It's not that there just isn't sufficient access. And of course, there's a liquor store on every damn corner.
Right.
But they don't even have bus routes out there.
Right.
Just for the ones that you know what I'm saying? And it's just all around the table. This state that especially Judah, the so-called black man, Mexican so-called, you know, the gentrification is real. And I know if it wasn't for the candy store that someone opened up in their house, there would have been some days that I would have just been hungry, but I had that candy store that was in the hood.
Right.
And just to interject, just a minute, a lot of times when we talk about these stores, they're supposed to supply nutritious food, not just, you know, chips and candy and stuff like that. We're talking about apples, oranges, organic food, whole food, right? You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind also for anybody else in mind.
And just to go in with you, you know, of course, what was the most nutritious thing that the candy store had? Hot dogs and nacho cheese, chili. Remember when Tutti Fruities was $1 for a big old bag? But you know, just on the health aspect, and I don't know if that's what you're getting to, Adawan, but I mean, the diabetes that we have to go, you know, deal with, you know, it has a lot to do with just what you're speaking on, Adawan.
Right.
You know, the food stores in the hood, it's the gas station.
Right.
So if I will, let me read this comment. We got some comments from online coming from Alabama, and it reads: the corner store.
Oh,
I could. Got a big question. Okay, and it reads: the corner store can't sustain a nation, and that's a lot of times all that we have. Like the brother was saying,
Right.
and I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, but sometimes you go into these stores and the healthiest thing is the water, and it's probably acidic.
Hopefully, it got a Chester's fried chicken in there.
And then another comment that Alabama made was, we need farmland and farm to the table. And that was another thing I wanted to mention too about community gardens. Have anybody, did the brothers want to touch on that?
Yeah, I was just about to say that it's all about what we said about earlier about everything. We talked about the rent, we talked about the bills. It's about sustainability. You know what I mean? If I grow tomatoes and you grow onions,
Right.
and you grow potatoes, you got some chicken. You know, I grew up on like 34th and Emerson. You go down the street to Shaylin, there's been this house, 34th and Shaylin, big ass yard with horses there. All my life going to school, I drove past seeing those horses.
Right.
So if they can have horses, they're there in the hood. Why can't we have a couple cows?
Right.
A couple pigs?
That's right.
You know what I mean? But some type of meat. You know what I mean? So the least, go something, if we utilize our land. I know in my own neighborhood, we had like a good, half acre backyard.
Right.
My father just had a little corner where he grew his garden, but like, shoot, that'd be less grass for me to cut if he made more into the garden, and more we can feed each other. And so I think it all goes back to sustainability. Everybody learning how to grow their own food, buy from black markets. There are black farmers out here.
Right.
They're trying to make it hard for them to get what they need. But yeah, we can reach out and start our own black farmers market every
Saturday, y'all come out here, get a bus, get a food truck where you go to the community and sell produce to the elderly and to the sick and the infirm.
That's a great idea, the Black Farmers Market.
I was gonna say, if I could interject, that's gonna go into our next line of questioning concerning Black and Latino businesses. What's stopping us from doing that? Are we over permitted, coded? We're gonna talk about it in the next segment. So with that, I think,
If I could,
okay,
I want to say
brother, want to
real
get it
quick.
in, all right?
Real quick, I promise to make it quick. So I just wanted to touch in on what you were saying as well. So like, here's like prime example. If like where I live at, I wanted to get some chickens, but the problem is this: they code it to where you can't even have small animals. Like the restaurant don't want you to have nothing.
Right.
He wants you to totally rely on him. Because I've looked into getting some chickens. I called one guy about it. And I was like, one guy, man, where you get some chickens from? He was like, yeah, he told me the place to go. I ain't gonna say the name because they ain't sponsoring nothing around here. But he told me the place to go to get some chickens, and I went to go get them. And but I had to come to find out, you gotta have like special permission to even have a couple of chickens in your yard. You understand? Which is funny because I seen some on 10th Street one day. But the thing is, they ain't supposed to have them. The only reason they get to keep them is because people aren't complaining. Like, and this is the problem with gentrification. Everybody knows I got a bunch of dogs. You understand? I didn't have any issues with my dogs until my neighborhood started getting gentrified. And all of a sudden, there's problems with my dogs. You understand? All of a sudden, animal control. Your dogs are barking. Well, that's a good thing. That's what I told them. A good thing. They ain't meowing or mooing. They're supposed to bark. They're dogs. You know what I'm saying? The heck are you knocking on my door for a dog barking? Did he bite somebody? Is he running the neighborhood? Then let him do his job. There's an alley right behind my house. Anytime something goes down that alley, he's gonna bark. That's his job. You understand? He's saving lives, little do they know. That way I don't have to do my thing. He's doing his thing. You understand? But this is the problem with neighborhoods being gentrified. Another problem, which you was talking about the grocery stores. Like, everybody knows this. If you want certain products, there's certain stores you go to. And there's usually not the ones in the hood. Like, if I want greens, I don't go to the stores around my neighborhood. If I want vegetables, I can't go. You know why? Because they send rotten, nasty, the best, the worst. We get the last selection in the ghetto for good vegetables. Your onions is sucky, your tomatoes is sucky, the greens is sucky, everything sucks.
Right.
You can stand there for 30 minutes trying to find some goddamn greens. They do that purposely. That's why what the brother was saying about community gardens and things of that nature is so important.
Right.
But once more, you gotta have the privacy gate because if you're a person neighbor sees it, he's probably on call the police. How many times have we seen black people getting the police called on for barbecuing? Imagine if you're in your yard gardening, they're definitely gonna feel threatened. You understand? That's all I got.
Wow, I appreciate that comment. And we're gonna get one last comment until we have our intermission.
Couple comments. It's like if I could, as for the food deserts, you understand, like bringing that up really refreshed a memory in my head. You understand, because I had traveled from Indiana to Arizona as well as New Mexico to go to where it is that my father's people is from, which is the Navajo Nation. You understand, so-called Native Indian reservation.
Right.
And when I went out there, not only did I really see the hell it is these brothers and sisters are living in, like, going out there, I just thought of like a country that was bombed out by another nation and that was just left to defend for themselves. But by traveling through these lands, you understand, I saw how it is that their grocery stores were always so far spaced apart and how nobody really lived around them. You understand, so far spaced apart that you had to drive like an hour and a half plus in order to get to these stores. Not only grocery stores, but as well as gas stations. Like, you got to travel an absurd distance in order to get basic necessities. You understand? You want to get a gallon of milk, you have to drive an hour and a half and hope you have the gas for it. Like, that's just the kind of hell it is that our oppressor has us living in. And you know, if we really looked into who it is that we are as a people and recognize who we are as a nation, you understand, which through the teachings of the Isupk and the Commander Johanna, who has been raising up farms all across this disgusting country for so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians.
That's right.
In order for us to eat, you understand, and not have to, you know, drive 3 hours in order to get what it is that we need in order to survive. You understand? Thankfully, through those teachings, like the brothers in Indiana, you understand, are looking to do the same thing. You understand, are looking to support the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian communities within this state, as well as in the states abroad. You understand?
That's right.
All throughout the 50 states. You go into Canada, we got the same thing going on. You understand? South America, you go into the UK. Brothers are raising up farms for so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. So that it is that we don't have to worry about how it is we're going to get our next meal, which ultimately, you understand, with how prices are rising on food, it's just going to lead to a brother or sister going out and committing a crime so that it is that they can eat for another day.
Right.
You understand? So that it is that their babies don't have to starve for the next 3 or 4 days. So that it is that their wife, you understand, doesn't have to wither away into bones and hoard herself out in order for her to eat. You understand? Like the Isupk is the only really saving grace for our people.
That's right.
So, with that said, it's very interesting because a lot of us have backyards and a lot of us don't know how to grow a garden.
Right.
A couple of tomatoes. Might be prudent to invest in some books on gardening and heirloom seeds and get it cracking like that.
And it should be legal for us to have a goat or something in our own backyard.
Right.
If it's fenced in, it's eating the grass. Damn, we can't have our own animal. What is God's green earth law is that? So that need to be something that needs to be changed in the community, in the Black community. I know that it's a city and blah blah blah. The animal in the city. Well, hell, you can have a dog. You know, white people have all types of dogs. Why can't you have a goat? Why can't you have a lamb or something like that in your own yard, fenced off with the right amount of parameters that is being taken care of, eating the grass. You got your goat's milk, or you can kill it once a year to get some extra meat, whatnot. That's something that's oppression. We shouldn't be forced to not be able to do that.
Well, we're gonna talk about that in the second half after the intermission. That's concerning businesses and bartering.
Right.
Like the brother was talking about. You got this vegetable, I got that one, or have a chicken or something. Then you could barter. That's how they did back in the day. We're gonna talk about it. So we're gonna take an intermission. We'll be back at about 8:30. Let's give ourselves 8:30. We're gonna extend it a little bit. Throw it out there, some food, man. Support the Black businesses. You know what I mean? ISUPK, the Indianapolis ISUPK City Hall meeting.
That's
right.
All right.
I appreciate the comments. Appreciate that. Yeah, you're gonna do your thing.